Welcome to MMT Chats. This episode brought to you by ISCAR with new ideas for machining intelligently. Hey MMT followers, Christina Fuges with MoldMaking Technology back for another quick MMT chat. My guest today is Steve Michon, president of Zero Tolerance in Clinton, Michigan, Clinton Township, Michigan. So hi, Steve.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good.
All right, so why don't we start off by you providing just a little snapshot of your journey to where you are today, your background, your education, a little bit about your job history and what led you to manufacturing and mold making specifically.
Okay. Well, we'll get started back in high school. My mom and dad moved to Clinton Township from where I was living. I was living in Romulus, and I ended up having a chance to meet one of their shop class teachers, and he really took an interest to me and gave me a couple puzzles to solve on the desk. And I had them solved pretty quick. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you can go into my advanced class." So I had a knack for mechanical things. I ended up taking his class and ended up getting a job out of the class from one of his former students who had his own shop. So there's actually, I think 20 of his students had their own business.
Oh, wow.
And I was introduced to two of them, and the second one hired me. So I went from there. I ended up learning under a mentor for 4 years and learned the trade, and was really interested in it. I was willing to work for free. I wanted to learn. So fortunately, he gave me $7 an hour. So I was grateful for that. But yeah, that's how I got started, and then worked in the trade for about 15 years, and then moved to Kansas and started a shop out there.
Okay.
Actually, I was hired out there to start a company. It's not start a company, start a shop. So I got to order the whole shop out of a catalog, which was really fun because I didn't have to spend my money, but I got to buy all the tools I wanted to buy.
All right.
So doing that, I learned a lot, how the shop worked, what it takes to put that all together. Being an employee, you don't really see what it takes. So when I had to put it all together and make it happen, it was a different story, and I learned a lot. So from there, my wife and I moved out to Kansas, and we ended up having 3 kids out there.
Okay.
And the company that I went out there for ended up it went south there. So I ended up deciding, am I going to move home or what are we going to do? And we started a shop. It was my wife's idea. She decided to call it Zero Tolerance. I thought it was a great solution because I'm trying to make things perfect. But,
exactly.
It's tough to do. So we ended up doing that. And she said, if we're going to do this, I got 3 kids at home and you're working a ton. I'm going to suggest we move home to get some support. So we moved back to Michigan in 2011. I started 2012. We moved back, and we've been here ever since. So,
wow.
So
there's quite a bit of experience. Yeah. From the early days to today. Can you name one thing that, first of all, that was the hook to keep you going in manufacturing, and what keeps you doing it today?
That's a great question. I think the excitement of new things and doing something that no one's done, solving the problems is fulfilling. When you can come up with something, design it, build it, and it solves a problem for someone, it's a huge good feeling inside, I guess. It really keeps me going to know that I'm using my skill set to serve someone.
And to solve problems. All right, let's fast forward to Zero Tolerance. So your wife named it, kind of obvious that name Zero Tolerance, what it means and what you're after. But what would you say is the focus of Zero Tolerance when you think about, the competitive landscape and what you offer? What's your focus and why?
Well, our focus is really to be able to make changes on the fly. We're not a huge company. We're small. We have 14 people. We can do a lot of things right in the middle of a process, change an idea, talk to the customers, get their feedback, show them what we're thinking, and then present them with a solution. And then they can say yes or no, but we can make that happen quickly. A lot of companies like that aspect of it. It's not just a department, it's our whole company. And that's kind of what we focus on. What is our advantage is we know the technology, we have lots of experience. We don't know everything, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But we're willing to learn, try, and explore new solutions that maybe someone hasn't come up with.
What do you think is the key when you say being able to react to a customer's needs and make changes on the fly? How do you accomplish that? What's key to making that happen in your team and the technology that you use or your process?
Yeah, it's taking the CAD models and Cimatron is what we use. It's very important to be able to, it's easy to talk about it, but when you can actually put it into the CAD model and show a 3D model online with them and say, here's what we're thinking, this is what you gave us, I think this will do what you want, and here's why. So we can present that to them online, like we're doing right now. And that's a huge advantage compared to what it used to be in the trade, where you really have to make a call and then nobody can really see what you're saying, even though the technology is there, but not everyone's using it. So it's good to have it right in their face. Even if they don't know how to use the CAD, they can get on their computer and they can see it right on the screen, rotate it around. You can see it all. So that's a big part of it.
Okay. All right. Can we run down your stated core values? And I saw this on your website. Maybe you can just kind of explain each one. You talk about innovation, transparency, accessibility, and relationship. So why don't we just talk a little bit about each one in terms of zero tolerance? Innovation.
Well, innovation, that one's, I guess I've had that since I was little. I've always liked making something that doesn't exist, or maybe I'll come up with something that someone already made, but the thinking is there. It's all about thinking process. I grew up in the trade thinking about a square block of steel. How am I going to hold it? How am I going to machine it? And then what stage I have to do to get to that point where it ends up changing the idea because of how I'm holding it. So I never end up getting my true thought because I know that I'm going to run into roadblocks in that manufacturing process. But the innovation part is thinking outside that box.
Okay.
How can we do it differently? And everywhere I've been, when we moved to Kansas, I got to see forgings, stampings, and all kinds of different ways outside of a mold making perspective. Sheet metal and that kind of manufacturing really opened my eyes to say, boy, I've been stuck in the box. And now I can see there's other ways and more effective, more cost effective, more profitable. So the innovative part is trying to see it better, see it in a way that makes more sense.
Got it. All right. How about transparency?
Transparency is probably a huge one. That ranks right up there with integrity. We're not perfect. We're going to try our best, but when we're running into trouble, we're transparent. We're saying, hey, we ran into a snag. We've got to do this. We broke a block or we broke a cutter, machine crashed, and we're straightforward with it. Like, hey, this is what happened. Here's our plan to fix it. We wanted to let you know. So we got to keep our customers. Yeah. We got to be proactive and just let them know. I mean, people trust us because of that, and they appreciate the feedback. Like, you could just not tell them, and then you end up with egg in your face when the due date gets missed. And they could have said, wow, well, you had time if you would have told us.
Yeah, exactly.
So the customers have been real flexible with it, but the transparency side of it is everything.
Got it. That goes nicely into the next two, accessibility and relationships. So talk about accessibility.
Yeah, and that's part of it. I think that's part of my struggle as the owner is I want to be able to help everybody that comes to me. So sometimes I'm not accessible to everyone, but being the person that's trying to solve the problem for you, or my team. I have good engineers, and I will hand that relationship off to whoever I need to as we go, and then make sure that they're followed up with and making sure that they get what they need when the demand comes, because there seems to be a lot of demand right now.
Yeah.
For accessibility, when people are trying to get a hold of you, and that's what I do a lot at this point.
Is being there. So that ties to relationships. So define what your customer, and I guess that could be employee relationships too. Like, what does that relationship mean to you in terms of zero tolerance?
For my relationship with the customers, it's personal. You know, everything, even if they're working for a company, it's really not their company, but it's a personal thing for me and everybody that's here. We put a lot of pride in our work. We want that to show through with everything we do. We might have our internal struggles, just like anybody might, but we have a very good, very high standard for meeting what the customer needs are and making sure that we make them feel comfortable in asking us, talking to us, communicating with us.
All right, so let's look at the people. How many employees does Zero Tolerance have as of today?
We have 14, a couple of part-time, and right now it's new for me, so I haven't been to this point with having this many employees, so I'm learning as well. But I'll tell you that the people side of things is a challenge, without a doubt. It's you got to be very careful how you talk to people, how it's said. It's not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it.
True.
So feelings get hurt, and sometimes you don't have enough pats on the back where you appreciate someone so much, but you haven't told them.
Yeah.
So there's a big problem there too. It's like having your kids feel neglected. You don't want that.
Yeah, I noticed that is the big trend on the business side of mold making, and it has been for a number of years. But I do believe that next generation coming in, there's just a big shift happening. And I agree, it's a challenge. Like the business side, the people side, you guys and gals got the technology and process side down, right? Now but you can't, that means nothing if you don't hone your team, and really understand them as people. And I know that's a big challenge. So I know you have this wall of gratitude. I think that probably plays nicely, if I'm understanding it right, to the people side and Zero's culture. So talk about that wall.
Well, that wall of gratitude is huge for me. Like I've had so much help throughout the years, and just to look back and say, wow, how did I get to this point and have 4 kids and lived in the basement with my parents for 3 years while I'm building a company, making no money. So I'm looking at it like, wow, like if you've seen a turtle on a fence post, you can rest assured he did not get there on his own. So
Good one.
I try to have as much gratitude as I can for the people that have helped me get where I've been, be part of my family in all we do. I mean, it's really a huge factor, having faith in God and just, hey, someone designed this whole thing and it surely wasn't me. So
exactly,
to be a part of creation and be able to do the things we do is my gift back.
Oh, I love that. And I love that. And I wish people looked at manufacturing more like having their hand in creation, because it certainly is. So does that wall get updated by the team? Like, and how often, and how was that even celebrated?
Actually, I don't think it's been updated for a long time. It's been I probably put that together 8 years ago, and I think it's not changed. It's really the core of what started it, and that's not changed. I can probably add to it. It'll get bigger and bigger, because every time we grow and we learn something new from someone, I'm grateful.
Yeah, exactly.
We try to give it away as well.
Yeah, keep building that. Keep building that. All right, let's talk technology. So your site mentions investment in the highest performance technology. So of course we got to get into that. But why don't you start with, what was your latest purchase in terms of technology? And what do you consider your most important purchase so far for Zero Tolerance?
Well, my latest purchase, I gotta say, is probably there's 2. The wire EDM and the sinker EDM machines that we have are some of the best that I've ever used. The sinker technology is really incredibly amazing when you can do so much more with less effort, less cost, more speed. So the sinker is huge. The wire, just the same. We didn't have wire before, so we have a wire now over the last 2 years. And we used to outsource that work a lot, but now there's a lot more that we do with it here. And that technology is powerful. But the molding presses too that we have, the injection molding, that technology has come a long way too. It's like a full-blown CNC machine, the way they run.
Yep.
They're consistent. A lot of companies use them for medical, and they're just so accurate. You can't beat it. An old hydraulic machine can't do what the new ones do.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem like a very high-tech piece of equipment, but it is. It's very impressive, and it makes it so you can do scientific molding, which allows us to really make things that we couldn't make before.
Yep.
So
I like that you're so to me, having the presses in-house, or is it one press or multiple?
We have two.
Okay.
Right now.
So having them in-house, I just think makes a better mold builder because you are able to take what you're building and right. Are you going beyond sampling and tryout? Are you doing any production molding on any level, or just is it just early on?
We actually do both.
Oh, okay.
We run hundreds of thousands of parts a month in one machine, and we do mold tryouts in another machine. And that does for sure make you a better mold maker,
Yeah.
because when you're running it in-house, now you understand why the molders want to complain to the mold builders that it's a mold problem. It's a mold problem.
Yeah.
Well, there's some truth to that. So
Yeah.
we've really shored up some of our issues before they get to that point, and it gives us a better end product when we sell our molds. So,
do you want to give a shout out to the manufacturers of your EDMs as well as the molding machines?
oh yeah, the Eagle 800 Mitsubishi carries Eagle, and also the wire EDM that we have, the MPR 2400. That's a phenomenal wire machine. It's a large build volume for us, and then their equipment is phenomenal. Their service is great, and also Fanuc RoboShot is our molding press.
Okay.
But that's a great piece of equipment, by far one of the best things I've invested in.
Great. All right. So speaking of technology, working with customers earlier on in the process, we can't not talk about 3D printing and mold making. So where do you stand with that technology? Do you outsource it? Are you looking at it? Do you have it in-house? Talk about that.
Oh, this is a good topic, right? So 3D printing has really changed the mindset that I have when I talk about having a cube and starting from a box. It's really a different thought process, and I really can't explain it very well unless you hear the whole story. But we've taken the 3D printing we do have in-house. We have Mark Forged,
Okay.
an X7 and a Mark II, and now an Onyx 1.
Wow.
And then we are involved with 3D metal printing as well. We have taken and made slides that were curved, and they needed a conformal cooling circuit in them. We worked with Next Chapter Manufacturing, Jason Murphy, really good, super smart, very fun to be here. I could sit in his office for weeks. So
He's a
him
good
and I
guy.
can talk about a lot of ideas, but that technology, I've outsourced the steel, but we do the composites in-house. But we've also built a really cool tool for our molding process, which has helped us immensely in our throughput. We went from a 7 or 8 day molding process where we can get it down to 4 days by using an end of arm tooling, 3D printed claw, we call it, that loads 8 inserts at a time. And we do it with not only the 8 cavity, but 3 other 4 cavities molds that we run a lot. So that technology, just the weight, the safety, the efficiency, it's just amazing when you can apply the technology. And it's really, a lot of printers are out there. It's really taking the problem you have and solving it with something that you wouldn't do. I kind of try to explain 3D printing. When you make a little bracket that holds your phone, you think it's the silliest thing in the world, but it opens your eyes to, wait a minute, there's something else I can make. Oh, wait a minute. And it doesn't cost me 70 hours of work to make it.
Exactly.
That's where my head went, where, wow, there's so many problems I would try to solve if I didn't have to physically make the parts or make the tools. When you can print them overnight and have your kids be excited about a Pinewood Derby car, I mean, there's a lot of advantage to it, but until your feet are wet in that space, you're not going to know that it does make sense to have. It's like having a printer in your office that you don't get an ROI on, but you can't function without it. So
that's a good way to look at it. That's a good, because I keep saying it's another tool in the toolbox. Like it's been talked about so much over the past 10 years that it has become its own industry, when really within your world, it's another tool in the toolbox. Like every shop on some level is eventually going to have one, whether it's on the polymer side or the metal side. And you, if I'm understanding correctly, you're talking about using it internally for the things, the parts, the products that you need, right? The shop needs. And now did you talk about slides and working with Next Chapter? Have you used the technology to make a conformal cold insert for a customer? Like, are you using it as part of your tooling?
Oh, yeah. And that's not only have we printed stuff internally, we've printed stuff for other companies.
Okay.
We've made claws for other companies as well,
Uh-huh.
for end of arm tooling. So that's, and then CMM fixtures and also pad printing fixtures. And those have been great. I mean, they could go buy their own printer for sure, but they don't want to spend the time or the energy to do it. So we get that work from them.
Interesting.
For the trust factor, they know we can do the CAD, and that's really where their strong point is that 3D CAD I talked about.
Yeah.
Having that ability to show the people, then they're like, well, yeah, like that's great. If I can see it and I can have you do it, it's cost effective for them, and they only use us when they need us. So it's a good thing.
That's like a whole separate like line of business coming in, is right? Is
It
3D
is.
printing those types of fixtures for customers. So how does that play into your team? Like, do you have somebody dedicated to those machines? Is everybody cross-trained? Tell me about that a little bit.
That was the first year I had it here. I really didn't have anybody cross-trained or anything. It was more like, let's think about what we can make. What kind of little problems can we solve with it? And I was challenging everyone to come up with something.
Okay.
Well, until they are tasked with building something on their own, and then they'll give me a design they made, and then we'll put it in there, print it. That started to spark, but it was a slow process. It's a mental shift that's hard to, it's hard to change. But once you do it and you see what it can do, all of a sudden there's bike parts. We're printing bike parts. We're printing stuff for a gun rack, and all these things start to come. And people kind of laugh like, oh, you'll never make money with it. Well, you won't make money with it if you don't do anything.
Yeah.
You can make money with it once you start to see the possibilities. And that's where I think we've kind of bridged the gap a little, but there's so much more that can be done with it.
And that's what falls in line, going back to earlier, your innovation, right? And thinking outside the box. That technology is perfect for that aspect of zero tolerance. All right, so let's go back talking more generally about zero tolerance. What would you say, because we didn't talk about this much, your customer base, and what are your most common customer projects? What is zero tolerance known for?
Zero tolerance is known for building high quality, high tolerance tooling for medical, consumer goods, oil and gas industry. And complex. We like to build complex tooling, a lot of action slides, lifters, stuff like that. So we've done unscrewing tools. Yeah, we kind of cover a large basis. We try not to stay in the automotive very much. Just being a small company, it's tough to get paid, and the terms are hard to deal with. So we like more of the medical and complex. We've gotten into a lot of gun magazines, gun frames, and stuff where it's more consumer and medical is probably our two biggest markets.
All right. So what has been the most interesting project that you've worked on? And like kind of talk about, was there a problem you were solving, the solution and the benefits? Like talk about that.
Oh, there was one actually. It was a gun frame, and it was a 2-cavity mold that had 3 lifters or 3 slides coming together, and an internal slide that made an undercut inside the gun magazine, or not the gun magazine, the gun frame. Okay. And we also had to have a hot valve, or a valve gated hot tip on one point of the part that was very difficult to get to. Even the manufacturers that make the manifolds did not want to do it because it would void their warranty because of the shape. So we ended up finding one that would do it with us, and we made it work, and it solved the warp problem they were having, because they were able to use mold flow and decide where to put the gate, and it worked well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a good project. It was fun. It took a long time, but it turned out beautiful.
All right. How about, what is your number one challenge with the business so far?
Number one challenge with the business is me delegating it, more of my tasks.
Control freak.
Without a doubt. I really I don't want to lose the touch, the care of, as I know I'm going out there, I'm checking to make sure it's perfect. And I think, and I err on this side that no one else cares as much, but I'm wrong. But that's my challenge. My challenge is giving people a task and then believing in them to do that. So,
Yeah.
and they've been doing great. So
That's awesome.
I've been trying to step away as more off the floor as I can. But I enjoy it still too. So I'll go out there just to make sure I know what I'm doing still.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. All right.
So
Last but not, let's say that again.
but that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah. That's many, especially owners, especially of a shop your size too. And
Right.
people that are passionate. You don't want to let that side of the, what you do for a living go because you just love it so much.
Right.
All right. Last but not least, I have to mention, I think we met via LinkedIn is where I saw you. So you're on social. Talk to me a little bit about your activity. Like that's a growing aspect within manufacturing and even mold making. People are, sharing more on there. So how do you use it? Is there a particular strategy? Is it just on the fly? Yeah. Give us some tips on that.
Well, we got started with it, at least 5 years ago. And I was reading a book and it talked about just exposing who you are, what you do, not selling, just kind of telling your story and showing what you do. So I had a fortunate employee, my niece, who was working part-time helping my wife with the books, and she was into it. So she was into social media, and she's like, well, can I start posting stuff? I'm like, absolutely, let's post it on everything you can think of. And so I would take pictures myself and say, wow, this is cool, I'm building it, I think it's cool. And I would send her the videos, hot drop them to her phone. And then we started to show more and more and more, and people were like, wow, that's cool. We had 1 million views on one little cutting an electrode. Wow. It looked like a pencil. And it was like, really? That's interesting. I was like, that's the silliest thing, but you don't know. So
you don't know. And it's just exposure, right?
And it's not just random. It's something that I think is really neat or interesting or I'm proud of. Like, hey, this is something really cool we did. It was hard to make. And I would share that or show it. And then we get a lot of feedback. And the key to it, I think, has been the feedback. So Murphy, who does a lot of it, she's kind of like my wizard from Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, where she's helping answer the questions. Uh-huh. And she'll make lists and come to me and we'll talk about it and then she'll respond. So it's really a matter of being interactive. You got to be interactive with
engage.
You got to be engaged. Yeah. I mean, and when you can help solve someone's problem and you're not charging them, hey, this is what I did, you can try that.
I love it.
I think that's a big advantage for people that follow us. We like to try to solve the questions if we know how, and if not, we can ask also.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's a great way to end this. I want to thank you, Steve, for your time and for all that insight and giving us a little window into who Zero Tolerance is.
Yeah. All right. No, thanks for having me.
No problem. And to everybody watching out there, remember, for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Stay informed and stay inspired.